Imagine you're standing in a crowded room, yet no one seems to notice you. You have thoughts, opinions, and emotions, but they stay locked inside, unseen and unheard. You hesitate before speaking, holding back your ideas. In moments of confrontation, you shrink into the background. At first, this might feel like the safest choice, avoiding conflict, staying out of trouble, steering clear of drama. But what if I told you this silence, this habit of keeping to yourself, is not protecting you at all? What if, instead of being a shield, your silence is actually a prison? In today's video, we're going to dive into the harmful consequences of being too quiet. We're not just talking about missing out on opportunities or struggling with social interactions, We're going to explore the deeper, more dangerous effects, how silence shapes your identity, erodes your confidence, and invites others to take control of your life. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why excessive silence is so destructive, and more importantly, how to break free from it. And at the end, I'll reveal the most powerful truth of all, one that could completely change the way you see yourself. To fully grasp why silence can be so damaging, we first need to understand where it comes from. No one is born afraid to speak. Watch a small child, and you'll see they express themselves freely. They ask questions, make demands, and assert their presence without hesitation. But over time, something changes. They begin to notice the reactions of those around them. Maybe they're scolded for speaking too much. Maybe they're ignored when they try to share their thoughts. Or maybe they're mocked, dismissed, or made to feel like their words don't matter. Psychologist Carl Jung explored this in his theory of the shadow self, the part of our psyche that contains everything we suppress, everything we're afraid to express. When a person stays too quiet, they're not just holding back words, they're burying parts of their true identity. They learn to stay silent, not because they have nothing to say, but because they believe speaking up is risky. They fear rejection, disapproval, or conflict, and so, little by little, their voice fades until one day they realize they've lost the ability to assert themselves entirely. Think about it. How many times have you held back a thought, kept an idea to yourself, or avoided speaking up in a difficult situation? Maybe it was at work when you had a solution, but stayed quiet out of fear of criticism. Maybe it was in a relationship where you wanted to express your feelings, but didn't want to stir up conflict. Or maybe it was in a social setting where you wanted to contribute, but felt overshadowed by louder voices. Each time this happens, it might seem like a small choice, but over time it shapes how you see yourself. Silence, when practiced excessively, leads to invisibility. You become the person who's overlooked, the one who's passed over for promotions, underestimated by others, or never chosen for leadership roles. It doesn't matter how smart, capable, or talented you are. If your voice isn't heard, your presence isn't felt. And the world doesn't reward those who remain invisible. It rewards those who dare to express themselves. But the consequences of being too quiet go far beyond being overlooked. There's something even more dangerous. When you don't speak up, you give others permission to control your life. Your silence allows people to make decisions for you, to assume what you think or feel, to define who you are. And not everyone will have your best interests at heart. This is why people who are too quiet often attract manipulators, controlling personalities, and even abusers. These individuals see silence as a sign of weakness, as an invitation to dominate. They know that someone who doesn't speak up is easier to influence, easier to control, easier to mold into whatever they want. And so the quiet person finds themselves in situations where their needs are ignored, their boundaries are crossed, and their life is dictated by the voices of others. Friedrich Nietzsche once said, "He who cannot command himself must obey." This is the harsh reality of excessive silence. If you don't take control of your voice, someone else will. If you don't assert your opinions, desires, or boundaries, others will decide for you. And often those decisions won't be in your favor. But here's something many people get wrong. Finding your voice doesn't mean becoming loud, aggressive, or constantly speaking just to be heard. It doesn't mean forcing yourself into every conversation or demanding attention. It means learning to express yourself with confidence and clarity, knowing that your voice matters. It means standing firm in your thoughts and beliefs without fear. This is the beginning of a powerful transformation. In the next part, we'll dig even deeper. We'll uncover how excessive silence not only affects your relationships, but also impacts your career, mental health, and sense of self-worth. What you discover next might completely change the way you view the power of your own voice. If being too quiet makes you invisible, what does that invisibility cost you? More than you might think. Silence doesn't just affect how others see you, it affects how you see yourself. It weakens your confidence, damages your relationships, and even limits your ability to succeed. Think about this. When you consistently hold back your thoughts and feelings, what message are you sending to yourself? You're reinforcing the idea that your opinions aren't important, that your feelings don't matter, and that your presence isn't valuable. Over time, this belief becomes deeply ingrained. You stop seeing yourself as someone who has a voice, someone who deserves to be heard. Instead, you start to believe that you're meant to stay in the background, that speaking up is for others, those who are more outgoing, more charismatic, more confident. This is how low self-esteem begins to take hold. It doesn't happen overnight. It's a slow process, a gradual erosion of self-worth. Every time you remain silent when you want to speak, you reinforce this pattern, and before you know it, silence is no longer just a habit, it's your identity. You become the quiet one, the person who listens rather than speaks, who follows rather than leads. But here's the truth. You weren't born to be silent. You weren't meant to simply observe life from the sidelines. Let's talk about how this affects your relationships. Communication is the foundation of every meaningful connection, whether it's with friends, family, colleagues, or romantic partners. Your ability to express yourself determines the depth and quality of your relationships. But if you're too quiet, these connections suffer. When you don't express your needs, how can you expect others to meet them? When you don't share your thoughts, how can people truly know and understand you? A relationship built on silence is a relationship that lacks authenticity. Over time, this can lead to resentment. You may start to feel unheard, unappreciated, or even taken for granted. Yet from the outside, everything seems fine, because you never voiced your frustrations, your desires, your boundaries. In romantic relationships, this is especially dangerous. If you don't assert yourself, you may find yourself in situations where your needs are always secondary. You may tolerate behavior you shouldn't accept. You may become someone who's constantly accommodating, constantly giving, constantly adjusting to fit the other person's expectations. And at first, this may seem like kindness, but in reality, it's self-betrayal. True love doesn't require you to silence yourself. Real connection requires honesty, and honesty requires a voice. The same goes for friendships. Have you ever been in a group where you felt invisible? Where conversations flowed around you, but you struggled to insert yourself, where decisions were made, but your opinion was never considered. It's not because you have nothing to offer, it's because silence creates distance. If you're too quiet for too long, people may stop expecting you to contribute at all, and the less you speak, the less you feel like you belong. But perhaps one of the most devastating effects of excessive silence is what it does to your career. The workplace isn't designed for those who remain in the shadows. If you don't advocate for yourself, others will take the opportunities that should have been yours. If you don't make your contributions visible, your efforts will go unnoticed. If you don't assert your value, your growth will be limited. Think about the people who advance in their careers. They're not necessarily the smartest, most talented, or hardest working. They're the ones who know how to make themselves heard. They speak up in meetings. They present their ideas with confidence. They communicate their goals and negotiate for what they deserve. Meanwhile, those who stay silent, no matter how skilled or dedicated, often remain stuck in the same place, overlooked and underappreciated. And this is where frustration sets in. You know you're capable. You know you have ideas, insights, and value. But if you don't express it, no one else will recognize it for you. The harsh reality is that the world doesn't reward silence. It doesn't promote those who wait to be noticed. It doesn't open doors for those who hesitate to knock. Now, you might be thinking, but I'm just not that kind of person. I'm naturally quiet. I don't like drawing attention to myself. And that's completely understandable. But here's what you need to realize. Finding your voice doesn't mean changing your personality. It doesn't mean forcing yourself to be someone you're not. It means learning to assert yourself in a way that feels natural and authentic to you. It means understanding that your voice matters, not just in moments of conflict, but in everyday life. This isn't about being loud. It's about being heard.